We hopefully will bring a lot of real life experience. I know the mentors are going to bring a lot of wonderful things to all of you. So we expect all of us to learn a great deal from this class, from Lean Launchpad. So first, we are going to launch into our introduction. So since we are recording this for Alexandria as well, I'm going to come up with my lapel mic too. So you're going to be speaking into 2 mics. So I want to introduce yourselves on who you are, what company you're with, and what you hope to get out of this. We'll start with you, Shantanu. Yep, stand on up.
Okay, so my name is Shantanu Bala. My company is eBook Glue, and I guess the main thing that I want to learn out of the Lean Launchpad is like how to develop customers and acquire customers, but also develop relationships with them and understand what they want better.
Excellent, thank you very much. Joe?
My name is Joe Christ. I'm the CFO of About My Care, which is a patient experience management system. Basically what we're looking to get out of this is exactly what you referred to, which is learning how to really get our products into something that the customer wants to buy.
Excellent. We're just going to go around the room here. We'll do this side and then we'll go to the other side.
Hello everyone, my name is Prayas. Okay, hello everyone, my name is Prayas. Is this what you're talking about? Okay. He's giving me notes back there. So I'm with Zestos. I'm the founder, and I'm interested in basically learning how to get some traction. You know, I have this idea. I think it's a great idea, and just translating that into something that can be scalable and hopefully go somewhere.
Very good. Yeah, I know this is kind of a weird setup. We're constantly learning our technology. So you need to talk into the lapel mic and talk into the other mic too. Lapel mic is what's being recorded. This mic is what makes you all hear everybody.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Abbott. I'm here as a mentor. I'm excited to be here. I've witnessed the Lean methodology and been involved in the entrepreneurial community here as well as some startups, so looking forward to sharing, learning, contributing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right.
Hi, my name is Navketan Mohanty, and my company's name is Integral Edge. I was a MS student last year here at WP Carey, and I know a little bit about this Lean methodology and all these things, but it will be a great opportunity for me to really understand more about it and try to apply it in my innovation, in my startup company. Thanks.
All right. Going to Heeman next from Duo Kitchenware.
Hi, my name is Heeman. I'm with Dual Kitchenware, and I'm hoping to get out of this is how to effectively get our products into our customers' hands.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to kind of crisscross here.
I'm Jameson Hill. I'm with Repair Report. It's a car repair marketplace. And so yeah, basically we're looking to get out of this, this course is how to go to market. That's our biggest challenge right now in acquiring new customers. So.
All right. Marcia, this is your second night in a row at SkySong. Welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Marcia Bushing, and I'm a volunteer mentor here. And my background includes nearly 30 years of business law here in the Valley, along with owning a construction company for a number of years. The last half a dozen years I've been focusing on helping small businesses get to the next level. So I'm here to help out.
Love it. All right.
Hi, I'm Jim Carroll. I'm a volunteer mentor. My background is kind of a combination of technology and business-to-business marketing, both in terms of what you normally think about in marketing, about product positioning, how you create a value proposition that's sustainable, but also in how you define products that give you a kind of a sustainable advantage. So I'm looking forward to working with a number of you here. Good luck.
Thank you.
My name is Logan Roberts, and I'm the founder of Simple Stop, and it's an automatic water shutoff valve. And basically what I want to do is I want to make sure that we can talk to some of our key partners and make sure that this is something that's going to work.
Excellent. You don't want to talk?
No, I'm too nervous.
Hello, my name is Alban Shamsuddini. I'm here with
Air, one of the co-founders along with Kim and a few others. We came up with a product. It's a catheter for people in wheelchairs so they can use while they're on the go. What do you hope to learn? We're here to learn a process that can be used even for multiple products to take basically an idea all the way up to a launch. So we're here more for the process than for a solution to our product. So it'd be good to learn the whole process.
Excellent. All right.
Hello, my name is Jared Greenberg. I'm here with Optimized Innovations. Basically, it's an inventor's platform helping to create sustainable solutions for everyday problems. I'm here to help build the foundation of the business and map out a plan of success.
Excellent. Thank you, Jared. Lance?
Good evening. My name's Lance, and I'm one of the mentors here. And my background is business consulting pretty much across most industries and most functional areas. My hope is to help small businesses be more successful quicker by focusing on business results, revenue, and things like that. So what I hope to learn tonight and throughout the 6 weeks is just finding some innovative business models.
Excellent. All right. You don't want to talk either?
We're together.
You're, okay. All right, Benji.
Hi, my name is Benji. We're with AdMaze Group. It's a low-cost, high-efficacy marketing firm that we started. It's very technology-centric, so we hope to kind of leverage that to bring down the cost of advertising here. That's it.
Excellent.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Here you go.
He thinks I'm a lady. Good evening. I'm Gail Pincus. I'm here as a volunteer mentor. I have a corporate background and an MBA, so I have those kinds of business skills. Currently, I'm a faculty associate at the Lodestar Center for Social Entrepreneurship. So that's what I do during the day as well, is help social purpose businesses get launched. So I use the business model canvas for social purpose businesses, and I'm anxious to hear the businesses that are here tonight.
Excellent. Thank you.
My turn, right?
Yes, it's your turn.
My name is Michael DeHustelaar. I work for the Small Business Development Centers here in Phoenix. My full-time job is helping small businesses grow and succeed. I've spent 20 of the last 40 years of my career helping small businesses and helping startups. So I'm just looking for an opportunity to help these people get bigger and better, faster, stronger. Thanks.
Love it. All right.
I'm Kim Schaefer.
I'm Sarah Galliana.
And we're the founders of Braille Tales, which is a company that we founded to basically meet the need for toys that are designed specifically for blind kids. So we know there's a real need. There's nobody out there apparently supplying the need. So our goal for this course is to link those two together.
All right, I'm going to get the team members to also open up throughout the course.
I'm John Edmondson. I'm a volunteer mentor. It sounds though like there might be a paid mentorship opportunity, so I'd like to learn about that. Anyway, I am with the head office. It's a small business accounting, outsourced accounting service, but my background includes a significant amount of time in sales and product management and marketing. So I'm looking forward to learning about this process and learning what the exciting things are that you guys are building.
Great, thank you, John. All right.
Hello, my name is Haitham Babaker. I'm with Indovantage, and so we're building a software that helps clinicians make informed decisions on what devices to use for vascular treatments. And so we're implementing it in 2 clinics right now, and the goal of this class is to help us translate it over to a commercial sort of sense and expand it over to more clinics. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of the class. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, my name is Peter Georgiou. I'm with Up the Elevating Wheelchair. We make a wheelchair that gives users extra height when they are usually seated at a lower position than the average person. We're looking to get more insight into how to gather facts about our market, given that it's very unique and diverse.
and that's what we hope to get out of the course.
And you're not talking either? Okay.
Hi, my name's Christopher, and we've developed a pretty unique product, and because of that, we kind of needed to be, we need customers to guide how the next prototype is going to look and what the next prototype is going to be like, and so we're hoping to learn how to communicate with customers, and that's what.
That's the key right there, letting the customers guide that process. Hi, Tom.
How are you? My name is Tom Hertig. I'm representing my daughter, who's an ASU senior, with a concept she came up with called STAIRS. It's a reading tool that is pretty innovative. We're looking to get a patent and license it out, so we're looking to find out some cool things here.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. We need to get you your books, too. All right. Jeff?
My name is Jeff Weiner. I'm a retired IBM Distinguished Engineer. At IBM, I did a lot of work with emerging technologies. I'm on the advisory council to the College of Engineering at New Mexico State University, and I've also taught a course at NMSU on emerging technologies. And I guess I'm here to steal all of your ideas and make a lot of money.
All right, we've got a, there we go. That's why we have Eli in the house. Very nice. And Jeff just came to us, by the way, so we're really thrilled to be able to have him on board helping us with our mentors.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Goulding. I'm a recent graduate of ASU, and I'm here in the form of a volunteer mentor, probably with the GLC students most likely. And my brother and I, we're twins, so good luck telling us apart. We're actually in the startup process ourselves, working to start a business, so I'll probably be doing some reverse mentoring as well from you guys. So thank you.
Excellent. All right.
How's it going? My name is Jordan Goulding. Just kind of reiterate what he said. You know, we're just looking here to help out anywhere we can, so thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Tim McElligott. I'm a first-year student at the MBA program at ASU, and I just wanted to learn about entrepreneurship, so I came.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim.
Hi, everyone. Me too. I'm a first-year full-time MBA student at WP Carey School of Business. We just came here to learn everything that Tracy's teaching today.
Oh, my. Okay. Well, I hope you learned something then. Put me on the spot here.
My name is Kyle Underseth. I had class, so I'm a little late, sorry.
That's okay. What do you hope to learn?
I hope to learn a little bit about getting from prototype to market.
I'm Jordan Chatila. I'm a sophomore finance major at ASU. Basically the same thing. I just want to learn more about the startup process from start to finish, how you go from an idea to basically a full-blown company, and learn as much as I can.
Excellent. And I'm fine with you being late because you were in class. It's very important.
Hi, my name is Mark Bernstein. I'm a cardiologist with a background in private equity stuff as well, and my forte is helping translate stuff that comes out of a lab from PhD inventor types to clinicians to business people to hospital and healthcare administrators. They all speak different languages, and it's been my experience that even though everyone has the same goal line in mind, some Tower of Babel miscommunication often occurs that kind of muddies up the process. So I hope to be able to help you all streamline and facilitate stuff like that. So please see me if you need some assistance.
Outstanding. Thank you. Andy, coming on over to you.
Good evening. My name's Andy Baran. I'm a former corporate executive, current small business owner, and a mentor with SCORE and also here at ASU. Happy to help.
Thank you, Andy.
I'm CJ Cornell. I've been sober for a wrong meeting. Wait.
Welcome, CJ.
Hi, CJ. I'm a former professor here at ASU of entrepreneurship, serial entrepreneur, 9 companies, 3 of them did over $1 billion, and 3 of them I still don't want to talk about. And I'm one of the voluntary advisors here.
All right.
Hi, I'm Dave Blackledge. I'm one of the mentors for the program. I spent 30 years in sales and operations management of venture-backed startups, and I've recently become an attorney downtown.
Thank you so much, Dave. All right, last but certainly not least.
I just want your voice. It's pretty good. I'm Alan Lobach. I'm a mentor, co-founder of SkyMall, and as of today, designated a Wall Street Journal startup guru. I don't know what the heck that term means, but I was awarded it today, so
well,
hoping to help everybody here.
That sounds impressive. And I don't think my voice with you would probably work very well, so anyway. And I want to also acknowledge Max, Eli, and Valeria. They are part of our wonderful team here at ASU, the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Group. So I wanted to do the introductions first and find out what you hope to learn to get some insight from everybody. And what I hope for the next several weeks is for you all to communicate with each other, get to know each other very well. Hopefully everybody can be on first name basis in the next few goes of it, because it's very important, again, for all of us to interact. So I want to cover really quick what to expect in this class. Now, keep in mind the mentors that are here, and again, we thank you so much for taking your time out to be here. I know the mentors have very busy schedules. Some can stay for part of the sessions. Some are only going to be attending some of the sessions. But for all of you participants, as far as the companies and the founders here, you need to be able to produce some deliverables every week. And I know we're very busy and have a lot going on, but this is going to be very key into your success and what you learn from this class in Lean. So that entails getting out, where we say get out of the building and talk to your customers. This is a very customer-centric, focused opportunity here. So we do want you to get out and talk to 10 customers per week. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about target market and that sort of thing and who you really need to be focusing in on. But for the point and purpose, too, it's a good exercise in just how do you approach people? What kind of information do you need to get from them? How is that going to be helpful to you? And some of the pitfalls about getting some of that customer information and what you need to look out for, how it's really going to be useful for you. The mentors are going to be very key in this whole process. It's because of their experience, because of their knowledge, their know-how. They've been in the trenches. They're going to help guide you as you go through this process. So when you present your business model canvases every week, it's going to be like a storyboard. So tonight, the ones that you've turned in already may be very primitive. You may not really know what you're doing with them so far, but as you go along this journey, you start to see how you change those components in the business model canvas based on the feedback that you receive from your customers. So the mentors are going to be very key on how you got that information, how you came to some of those conclusions, and maybe give you some better direction if you're stumbling or if you're stuck, or how to kind of put that into better focus. So the mentors are going to be very instrumental in this. Every week, except for this week, so this is the introductory part of it, but we created Google Docs for you, which is going to give you some feedback. You're going to have certain things that you're going to need to report on every week. You all have bit.lys, and I'll go over that a little bit later in the course, but every week you're going to be required to report on this, basically what you learned, your assumptions, here's what I discovered when talking to customers. You're going to tell us how many customers you talk to, and then every week you're going to present a new business model canvas and your findings, your discoveries with that. The mentors are going to critique that. They're going to give you feedback. Also, your fellow team members are going to give you critique and feedback as well. So we can interact with that. It's very important that we have a lively discussion about this. As much as I love talking, I know you probably don't want to hear me just talk for the next several weeks. So it's going to be about you all giving that feedback and that important engagement piece. So the presentations are going to be very important. I'm going to get some of you who might be a little shy to learn how to get up there and present too, because as the mentors will tell you, that when you are working on developing your startup and into a business, how you present yourself and how you do those pitches is going to be crucial to your success with that. How do you tell the story about what you're doing? Why is it important? You need to make sure that you're getting comfortable in that skin. And I know that it's not as easy for others, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So that certainly applies here. Now, we've got some available tools. Canvanizer is one of the tools that I sent to all of our companies. For the mentors, so you know, the business model canvas, which we're going to go over, we've got some paper copies in the back with Valeria if you want to grab one at any point during the class. But Canvanizer is a digital way that they can fill out their business model canvas. And they can have digital Post-it notes that you put on, and this will make more sense when we go through the class. So they can do that from a digital standpoint. One of our folks, Benson, I don't think is here yet. He's going to be joining us through some of the courses, but he has recommended a tool called Strategizer. It's a license. You have to buy a license for it, but if you're really interested in having this kind of tool that's a little bit more robust, you can check it out online. All of this is in your packet too, so you can check it out online later on if you'd like. So that's kind of what to expect. It's going to be very intensive for you to be able to reach out and talk to your customers and really kind of hit the pavement and figure out what you discover as a result of that. So this is going to be very focused on you getting out there. All right, so the schedule that we are going to have really quick. It's okay. Sure, absolutely.
I just want to add my testimonial, I guess, to this program. About a year ago, I went through this process, as a structured course at ASU, and I think a lot of us are familiar with courses in education that comes from government programs. Like 90% of it's fluff, 10% of it's actually important for your career or whatever. But I went through this program, and 100% of it is important to your business. If you're serious about doing a startup, everything that is being asked of you by Tracy, by the program, is to make sure that you're on the right track to make a successful business. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents about it. I know a lot of us might be here just like, oh, well, this is just a learning tool to learn entrepreneurship, but no, these are the in the trenches. I want to build a business. I'm serious about moving forward type steps, and that's really going to help you earn success. So I just wanted to add that because it's very important and relevant. So.
Excellent. Yeah. Very well stated. Thank you very much, Jameson. I appreciate that. All right, so initially we were going to have this every Thursday. We had to make a slight change. For the most part, we are going to be holding these courses on Thursday. Please note, next Thursday, we're going to be up in room 301. We are going to be breaking out into different cohorts, which I will email you which cohorts you're going to belong to as companies. Excuse me. That's so that facilitators and mentors can work more intimately with a smaller group of companies. But we're all going to meet in room 301 next Thursday. All right, that's obviously on the 3rd floor. It's going to be one of the big rooms as soon as you get off the elevators. So we're all going to meet there next Thursday, and then we're going to split off into groups. Now, oh, and Benson's here too to talk about Strategizer. I was just mentioning you, Benson. All right, the only change is Wednesday, October 30th, we're going to have the same time. We're going to meet from 5:30 to 8:30. We didn't have the class on October 24th because, as some of you know, that's when we are going to be opening up the Conscious Capitalism facility with Max 6. It's the new light manufacturing facility. I know some of the mentors are involved with that. Some of our Edson companies are involved with that. It's a big event for everybody. So we didn't want to take away from that. We wanted to be able to have that date reserved. So we're going to miss that week altogether, which means you get to go out and talk to more customers. That's the good news about that. And then our final class is going to be on Thursday, November 7th, is when we're going to do the final presentations and a wrap-up. Again, these dates and times are in your, well, the dates are in your packet. It's always 5:30 to 8:30. And as we're talking about tools, Benson, do you want to talk for a moment about Strategizer? I know you just walked in the door, but I was just mentioning some of the tools. So I'll let you kind of take that away.
Mind if I pull it up on the
No.
computer?
You have to walk with me because we have to. Yeah.
You're tethered.
I know. We're working on the technology. All right. And while Benson's pulling that up, oh, is that not working anymore? While he's pulling that up, just to give you an idea, Benson has worked with our group in the past, and he has done a lot of the Lean Launchpad courses. And he has been really in the trenches with a lot of working with companies, developing the companies, getting their startups going. He does a lot of work with Sydney Peck, who is the Director of Entrepreneurship Programs for W.P. Carey School of Business. He does an outstanding job as well. So we're very fortunate to be able to have the benefit of what they have learned. Oh, here we go. I'm glad this is going to be edited tonight. So Benson can share a great deal of information. The two books, by the way, that you have, and this is kind of interesting about what Benson brings to this, the Business Model Generation. All of the students should be having a copy of this and be able to use this as a reference. Feel free to mark it up, make use of it. But Benson is now working with the author of this book and really developing some different opportunities and ways to look at the business model canvas. This is a really great resource and tool. It goes well into the 9 blocks of the business model canvas, but also gets very in depth on a lot of different avenues with that. So, all right, so Benson's going to pull up. This is one of the tools, as we mentioned before. We have Canvanizer that you can create your business model canvas, where you have Strategizer. Thank you for your patience with the technology.
You guys can all hear me? Great. So I'll just be real quick about this. This is just, as Tracy mentioned, another tool for you guys. Strategizer is the software platform that Alexander Osterwalder and his team with the Business Model Generation have put together to be able to design and test business models and value propositions. So as you can see here, this is my account. On the left-hand side here, what you've got is various projects that I'm involved in. So these are various startup teams, projects that I'm working on within my own team. I'll just pull up a current project that I'm working on. I do a lot of content creation with Alex and his team. But one of the nice things about the Strategizer platform, if this computer would go a little bit faster, is that you can invite as many collaborators to your project as you want. So if you've got a group of mentors that you want to pull into to see your business model canvas, if you've got team members or what have you, you can pull them all into your project, and then you can create as many canvases as you want at any given time. So I'll just show you one that I'm working on right now and just kind of give you a sense of the power of this tool. So I did a case study on Nike's running footwear. And one of the nice things about it is you can go into your customer segments and you can quickly estimate the market size and put that in there. And then from there, you can obviously fill in the other boxes of your canvas. But then you can also estimate revenues. And there are a number of different financial functions and ratios that you can use to be able to estimate the revenues. And then put in any of your cost estimations, and then if you go here, it should show you the profitability of your business. So Nike's running footwear business accounts for about $383 million worth of revenue for the company. That's just their running footwear. And then what's even cooler about it is I did another canvas and I showed Nike running footwear with their new Flyknit technology. And the difference you'll see very quickly is that they were able to decrease their costs by about 1/3, which improved profitability by more than double. So they're now at $1.4 billion with the new Flyknit technology for their running footwear category. So again, you can see the quick power of this tool just in terms of quickly designing and sketching out your business models, prototyping models very, very quickly, and then driving some estimates. And then when it comes to the actual testing component, I don't know if I have anything that I'm testing right now, but what you can do is you can start marking the individual sticky notes on your canvas as either pass, fail, or currently testing. So as you're going through the customer development process, and as you're saying, okay, we have this assumption about X, Y, or Z, we need to go test that, you can do that very quickly here in Strategizer. And then lastly, you can see that there's also room for your value proposition canvas, which you guys are going to learn about next week, but you can very quickly dive straight from your business model canvas right into your value proposition canvas, which is just a kind of a zoom in of the value proposition box and the customer segment box. So again, just another tool that you guys can use to improve just improve the process for yourselves as you're getting out of the building and as you're going through this 5-week course.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Benson. Appreciate that. All right, so I know some of that probably didn't make as much sense as it's about to when you look at the canvas, and this is now what we're about to dive into. So we're going to go into all the building blocks of the canvas. If you have any questions for Benson about that, I know he'll be very generous in helping you out with all of that. All right. So first of all, we need to start with what really is a startup and what's the difference between, and I love how this slide dropped the S there, but startups and companies, and what really is the difference there. So is a startup the same as a company? Yes? Oh, Jameson, you should know better than that. All right, startups are really not the same as a company because a company is based on really developing something that's already been working, that we already know. So it's like if you open up a coffee shop, you're pretty much basing it on a previous type of idea that's already been done. Startups are really trying to find that business model that can be repeatable and scalable. And so you're constantly in search mode to really find out what's going to work. When you're already a company, you're executing what you know what works. All right, so there's some very distinct differences, and we're going to talk more about that. Startup is a temporary organization. A startup is not meant to be a startup forever. A startup is meant to be temporary because, again, you're designing it to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. So does it do you any good if you find something, maybe you find this great product, but you can't duplicate it? Is that going to really grow a business? Is that really going to be a basis of a company? Well, no. And also, can you scale it? What if you start getting all sorts of orders in? Can you handle that? Is that feasible to do? Does it make sense? Does the market bear that? So you're really looking for something that you can repeat and you can scale. And until you find that, you're really in startup mode, right? And we are fond of saying, and I know Benson's fond of saying this too, we want you to fail fast. We want to find out if it's something that you can execute, or if not, find out quickly. Traditionally, people have gone and built business plans, and they've gone for a long time. We actually dealt with one gentleman that we worked with that he'd been working, I think, I don't know, Benson, if you remember, if it was like a year or 2 years on a business plan. He hadn't really launched yet, and he put all this effort into a business plan, and he's just trying to figure it out. And in the meantime, time is ticking away, and he doesn't have anything substantial that he could really bring to the table. And you know what the whole fallacy of that is, a business plan traditionally is based on historical data. Well, if you're a startup, you don't really have that data to be able to predict future activities. Same with financial modeling. If you're going to predict and forecast, you need to base it on historical data. Well, startups don't really have that historical data. So instead of finding out that you go through this business plan, you're trying to work on it, and you're going to get it right and have all these wonderful projections and forecasts, and this is how you're going to sell your product and whatever. And at the end of the day, you find out that nobody wants to buy your product to begin with, because the piece you failed to do is to talk to potential customers. There's a lot of times that we think we know what people want to have. There are times that I'm like, this would be the greatest thing ever. And people are like, yeah, no, not really. But we have a tendency to want to hold on to that. That's our baby. You know, we don't want to be told that nobody wants our baby, right? So this is one of the hardest parts for startups to try to go through this discovery process and pivot or iterate, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. But there are very distinct differences between startups and with companies. So I want you all to think about that as you're sitting there and going through this discovery process. Do you need to make another adjustment? Okay, the lapel mic's going back on again. All right, we've been in discovery mode too. I'm trying to get our technology where we want it. Okay. All right, this is something interesting that several of my colleagues just went to go to the Lean Launchpad for Educators for Accelerators program in New York with Steve Blank. And one of the things that I wanted to show you, they call this the investment readiness level. So when you're embarking on this journey, and I like this a lot because it really gives you all as a startups an idea of where you're starting out and where you need to be and what that really looks like when we talk about it. So for some of you, you've just completed your first Canvas. And I know I've gotten the emails that I'm not sure if this is right, I know it's not perfect, I don't know what I'm really doing. So you're at this investment readiness level 1. These are good things to have in the back of your head, because ideally, when you're trying to build out your company and you're getting your startup, you're trying to find something that you can repeat and scale, and you want to ultimately have it attractive to potential investors, to potential buyers. You want to be at this place that people really are interested in giving you funding or helping you get off the ground in one way, shape, or form. So this gives you a really good idea of how you need to get started on this process. So here you may be at investment readiness level 1. So if you just finished that first business model canvas and you're not quite sure all those pieces of that puzzle, what they're supposed to do and how they interact, is an investor going to be looking at you very seriously? Hopefully not. If they are, run, because they've got some kind of agenda. Once you kind of go up the scale, we start figuring out, when we start getting into solving problems, and we validate that. We know that there's a problem, we know we can solve it, that's the validation piece. That starts getting you some traction, and we start getting up the chain here. We'll talk a little bit more about the right side of the canvas. That's kind of more of the front of the stage canvas. That's more of the customer interaction pieces, the value proposition. We start validating those assumptions, and we'll talk more about that. We start talking about validating the other side of the canvas, which is your key activities, key partnerships. We'll talk more about that as well. And then be able to have metrics that matter. How many units are you selling? What's your cash flow look like? Do you have that product market fit? All those things that really make your metrics, when an investor looks and sees does the due diligence, are they seeing things that are attractive to them? So when we go through this whole process, I want you to kind of keep this in the back of your head too, kind of just as a framework for how you should be progressing with your startup and developing it into your company. All right, so here's the crux of the whole course for tonight, the business model canvas. So raise of hands, who really knows what this is all about and who's like really feeling comfortable on their ability to do a business model canvas? A couple of you? Okay. All right. Who feels like you don't have a clue what the business model canvas is all about? It's okay to raise your hands on that too. That's why we're here. We're gonna learn. All right. Okay, so basically the business model has 9 components, and the whole idea is how a company creates value. What does that look like? What are all the components? How do they all fit together? It's about how you deliver those products and services to your customer. How do you create value in doing that? And do you create value? Next week, as Benson mentioned, we're going to go a lot into the value proposition canvas. There's another canvas and a tool that's a great resource to really figure out how you're really creating value for your customer segments. So the first one we're going to start with is the value proposition. And the value proposition is basically, what value are you bringing to your customers? What are you building it for who? And we think about value in terms of what pain are you relieving, or what gain are you creating for your customers? And are you in fact doing that? How are you solving a customer problem? Have you identified the problem correctly? And how are you satisfying a customer need? And do they identify it as a need? And sometimes, and we'll talk a little bit about that later tonight, but there's some, you can talk about, is it really a problem? We know there's a lot of products in the market that we never knew we had those problems until those products hit the market. We never knew we had the problem of not being able to get to our internet quick enough until we had our smartphones. So, there's some interesting discussion about that. But each value proposition speaks to a specific customer. And this is very important, because when we build out our business model canvases, it's very important that a value proposition matches to a customer segment. And this is where people get fuzzy, we don't get as much focus, where you think you're just going to kind of be all things to all people, and that doesn't work. We need to really narrow down what value proposition fits with what customer segment. And as we get more into the weeds with this, you're going to discover that there are very different value propositions depending on who your customers are and what they want from you. So a good way to think about this in an overall scope is, if I'm trying to do my taxes, which that's going to be coming up sooner than later, and hate doing taxes, and it's just such a painful process for me. So I'm going to look for a tax accountant that could solve a couple different things. They're actually going to solve a problem for me. They're going to alleviate a pain that I just am so about doing my taxes. But they're also maybe going to provide a gain for me because maybe they got me a higher refund. So there's a nice aspect to that right now. They actually solved two different issues. So they created a gain, they also alleviated a pain, and that's your value proposition. It's just like if you are trying to hang up a picture on the wall, the value proposition is not the hammer, getting a hammer. It's actually, I need the picture on the wall. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish. Now there are different tools that are required in order to accomplish that goal. But some people get confused about what that really looks like and kind of misname some of their value propositions. And this ties very closely, goes very hand in hand with our customer segments. Who are they and why would they buy? And it's very important in this whole process. These are the people you really need to be listening to. Because if you're not getting it right with them, are you going to sell many products? Is ebook glue going to be attractive to any customers if you don't know really what they want? No. But you're already selling to customers, right? Yeah, very good. All right, so our customer segments, we might have multiple segments of users. And you think, well, how does that work? We might have users and payers. One of the best examples of this is Facebook, right? So as a user, I don't pay anything to go onto Facebook. But then we have those advertisers that do. And the value proposition to both of our segments looks very, very different. To advertisers, it's how many people are watching, how many people are there getting their attention, how many people are going to see that ad. And for me as the user, I just want to know what my friends are up to. And, you know, it was, some of you know, it was my birthday yesterday, so I want to know who was saying happy birthday, you know? That was my value proposition with that. But advertisers are going to have a very different purpose and be a very different customer segment. All right, so you might have many different customers, and this is a really great example. So medical devices, obviously doctors that are going to use them, and we do have some in the group here that are working on some of those applications. Hospitals, certainly. Patients are going to be impacted. The insurance companies are going to be impacted with this. FDA can be a customer. So you have to look at, with one type of application, with one medical device, you're going to have multi-faceted customers with that. And each one is going to have a different need or a different skin in the game, if you will. For every customer segment, you're going to need a value proposition. What's important to them? What are you trying to provide for them? Your revenue model, and you're going to have different challenges with each of these customers, how you reach them, what that distribution looks like, how you're going to talk to them or target them. All that is going to be very different depending on which customer segment. So that's why when we create these business model canvases, it's very important to keep these things very separate and make sure I identify uniquely each one of these and how they fit into the overall picture here. And this is why this is so important, because these two need to match. To have the product market fit, and that's going to be a lot of our discussion next week on that product market fit. That's when we really get into the customer discovery and customer development process. But does the value proposition match the customer segment? And a lot of times we make assumption on these, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, because all of these things are basically assumptions that we need to test. These are all things that we think might be true, but when we really get to the validation portion, we understand if they are or not. And as Benson pointed out on Strategizer, where we talked about testing those hypotheses. Did it pass? Did it fail? Are you still testing? We're going to talk about what that looks like as we get further in the game here. So, channels. How does your product get to your customers? What does that look like? Does it get delivered digitally? Do they have to go to a store? What kind of interaction is that? What channels? How do you get this value proposition over to your customer segments? And as you know, that can get very, very different depending on the product. If it's a product, if it's a service. And we look at different channel types as well. Do we own our own channel type, or do we partner with somebody else to deliver our product to the customer? Is it a direct channel, or is it an indirect channel? Some of these concepts too, and some of the reading assignments that you're going to have for this week, cover this in more detail as well. So For the point and purpose of this portion tonight, we're going to kind of do the 30,000-foot view of the business model canvas. But these are very interesting things for you to start thinking about, what all these individual components look like and why they're important to you. And how efficient are you delivering that to your customer segment? So that goes into the channel as well. Now, as we look at it, the heart of this whole thing are your customer relationships. The customer relationships are really how your customers really feel about what you're bringing to them. Anybody that is really interested in growing a thriving business understands that this is such an important piece of that. If you neglect this aspect, you're going to have a competitor that's going to get it right. And fortunately, we see a lot anymore with poor customer service. You have people that just don't want to take the time, and so this is a wonderful opportunity for that competitive advantage if you really spend some time in the heart of this whole thing, which is your customer relationships. And how we put it is how you get those customers, how you keep those customers, and how you grow those customers. And we know that there are companies that spend a lot of time trying to attract new business and they neglect current business. Well, that's a problem because typically it costs a lot more to get new customers in than it is to keep your existing customers or upsell them or have recurring revenue from them. So that's a very important thing. And how you can sustain yourself and scale as a business is going to be dependent on how you're able to get. Do you have enough customers to sustain? You need to take a look at those things too, and how you can develop your value proposition to customer segments to keep that customer base growing. How does that play into your revenue stream or your cost structure? These things are very important. How do you cultivate these customer relationships? We also look at what types of relationships are expected. This is a very important point when we get to customer development pieces, because I may have an idea of what I'm supposed to deliver to my customer, but as a customer, from the customer perspective, you may have a very different view of how I'm supposed to be treating you, what kind of value I'm supposed to bring to you. We have different expectations of that, and we're going to get a little bit into this a little bit later on, but some of those things come into what type of, if it's a luxury product or if it's more service-oriented and specific to the customer, you're going to have a very different idea of what I'm supposed to get out of it as a customer, and you have to be aware of that. So if you're really on target with who your customers are and developing those relationships and getting that feedback, most importantly, you're going to get a really good sense of what that customer expectation piece is. We all know that perception is reality, right? So we may be thinking one thing, and in reality, that customer perception is going to be guiding their behavior. So these customer relationships do take the time to really grow them. And I put time on here as far as costs involved, because the more time we take to cultivate those relationships and what that looks like is going to be very important to the rest of our business model and how we approach those things. And that is going to be hand in hand with our revenue stream. So the million-dollar question, how do we make money? Joe, how are you going to make money? Sell to hospital administrators. Okay. How else are you going to make money? Referrals to other hospitals. Okay, am I putting you on the spot here? Like, okay. Heman, how are you going to make money? Product sales. Okay. You do a kitchenware. How else are you going to make money?
Maybe licensing.
Okay, licensing, design. Any other? That's all you can think of right now? Okay. Jared, how about you?
Grants, licensing.
Grants and licensing. Strategic partnerships.
And using customer feedback to develop products to design.
Okay. I like it. How about you?
Pretty much the same product sales.
Product sales.
Also, innovating products and product lines and being able to create new ones.
Okay. These are all interesting things to think about on how you're going to create revenue. And that's really what keeps us in business. If we don't have revenue, or especially if we don't have revenue that is exceeding our costs, then we really can't sustain our business, right? So it's important to think about all those different revenue streams. And one of the things you may discover as you go throughout this process, you might find ways to generate revenue that you never thought of. based on the feedback you get from your customers. You might figure out, oh, this is another way I can make money. One of the things that we like to talk about, when you think about like maybe a medical device or testing kit or something, I can't remember what the example was, but somebody had come up with a solution to test for the do the little pinprick in the finger, and they thought, well, how can we generate more revenue? And so they created auxiliary type of pieces that went along with this that were disposable, so people had to continue to purchase things to be able to use this product. So we think about different ways that we can generate more revenue in those revenue streams. But it's very important to think about those things on different ways to create that revenue. So we have one-time transaction fees, of course, that's just, I'm just gonna buy the product from you once. We also have recurring, so maybe that's something I continue, maybe I'm continuing to buy milk, which I do. So that would be a recurring cost. Upselling, you see this a lot in restaurants or bars. Would you like this with that too? And you can get this for 50 more cents, or you can buy this and bundle, and that sort of thing can be an upselling tactic, which is a very popular and good way to do that. But we look for ways, ideally we'd like to see ways that we can have recurring revenue, that we know that we have more revenue coming in on a consistent basis. Because if you have a product that people only buy it once, and this is my theory too about pantyhose, we can put people on the moon. We know there's the technology to make pantyhose that don't run. But is there any additional revenue in that? If I bought one pair for my entire life, which would be awesome, but there's really no recurring revenue in that model, is there? So you think about things like that and how we can encourage our customers to keep purchasing what we're selling, and how we can create ways to add more value that they'll want to add more money into our pockets. So we look at different ways. Asset sales is I sell you a product, you're purchasing it from me. Usage fees, now usage fees can be all sorts of different types of usage fees. One of the things that I put hotels up here because that's a really popular thing for them to generate more revenue. They have parking lot usage fees now. They have pool usage fees now. So these are ways that they're kind of getting some more revenue coming in, and things that we used to thought we already paid for by paying that nightly expense, but now that's a usage fee because obviously just having our hotel room wasn't enough. So that's something that I'm seeing an uptick with. Licensing, we talked about, some of you wanted to think you can create some revenue through licensing. Subscription fees, those are your monthly internet usage fees, that sort of thing. eBook Blue, I believe you guys go on a subscription fee type of model, right? It's interesting for you to think about other ways that you can add to the revenue cycle in addition to those subscription fees. And then of course we have, whether you're lending, renting, or leasing, you have recurring revenue streams that go along with that as well. All right, so key resources. What are your most important assets? So Jameson, what is your most important asset with your company?
The network of repair shops.
So what would be, if you could break it down, what's that most important asset?
It's the network of repair shops. I mean, it's our web application, obviously, to connect repair shops and drivers. So the software and also the network.
Okay, so the technology and the network, okay. And those are two very good answers to that. But one of the things, too, that we hear a lot with mentors, with our mentor base, we hear a lot with investors, we hear a lot with folks that are looking to maybe work with startups or help invest in companies. One of the #1 things we hear consistently is a great team, right? So people. If you have a good idea and you have a great team, they can really bring it home. But if you don't have the right people in place, then you don't really have as much as those who do. So I put a group of happy-looking people, like they're really excited to be here. So people are one of your key resources. And when we talk about you developing your teams and how you are going to function as a team with your companies and your startups, people is very important, because in order to really drive what you're going to do with those physical assets, with that IP, with those finances that you have, or if you have a lot of money that you can add to your company and help build it, the people and how they execute those things is going to be crucial. So think about that too. We talk a lot about diversifying your team, making sure you have a lot of different those aspects covered. You don't want all MBAs on a team. You don't want all engineers on a team. You want a good, diverse group, interdisciplinary team that can really help put to use all of these wonderful other assets in the most wonderful way possible. So that's why that's such a a very important key resource. And on the contrary, if you don't have that key resource of people, that's something that can really tear what you're doing down in a hurry. We've all been in those situations where it's bad morale or distrust or not utilizing and being good stewards by your assets that you do have. So to tie in with that too, key partners. Who are your partners and suppliers? One of the things that's important here is that you don't need to go it alone. To be able to have strategic partnerships, those strategic relationships can really take whatever resources you have and be the most efficient with them and have the most value out of them. Partnerships also do something very interesting. This is really important. They alleviate risk. If you can spread out that risk with some of those key partnerships so that you're not carrying the burden all by yourself, but maybe it's spread out over some of those partnerships, it does alleviate that risk. That's also very attractive to investors as well if you are considering those components. It creates opportunities for you to scale. So maybe you have a product but you don't have the manufacturing facility. Maybe you can create a strategic partnership where somebody that can manufacture a product, if you get those large orders that can keep you in business, that is able to handle some of those things, it allows you to grow rapidly if you are on target to do that. That's an important aspect to take a look at. Also, it can add resources to you that you don't have. So when you think about partnerships, when you think about the strategy behind that, there are a couple different ways that we can look at that too. So we can look at strategic alliances. You join together, maybe I have something to bring to the table that you're lacking and vice versa, so we're going to be a strategic alliance there. The one that kind of gets people is we call it co-opetition. So that's basically your competitors and you're kind of co-oping with them. Why would you do that? Why would you join with your competitor? Anybody have any ideas? Are they just the enemy and you don't want to do anything, have anything to do with them? Why would you want to do that? Huh? Say that again and say it in the mic.
I said the fight regulation.
There you go. Well, you know what? And I hate to bring this up as an example, but if you dive into this, actually they do bring up drug cartels because they try to have a monopoly and try to push other people out. So it is a way, I don't suggest that, by the way. I'm not condoning or recommending that. That's just an example so you can understand. But it's also a way to maybe break into markets that you wouldn't be able to otherwise by yourself. It's also a way, we've got Jeff back here.
To create standard ways of doing things that would be acceptable, that would be readily acceptable to customers.
Okay. Excellent. So create standard ways of doing things that would be acceptable to customers, and elaborate on that a little bit more, Jeff.
You know, if you're relatively unknown and you have a unique way of doing it, and then your competition gets together and they say, hey, we've got a standard way of doing it. If I'm a customer, I don't want to be locked into somebody who's got something unique. I'd sooner get on the standard bandwagon. And then the challenge is how do you differentiate yourself within that?
Very well stated. Benson's got some insight too.
So I'm doing some work right now with Johnson & Johnson Healthcare, and one of the things they're doing is they basically put together a group of 20 startups who could be potential incumbents to them in the digital health space. But the reason they're doing this is to build a stronger ecosystem around digital health in the digital health arena. Because in the future, these people, while yeah, they may be competitors, but they're also going to be providing certain key resources and key assets in terms of partnership that maybe they wouldn't be able to do on their own, or maybe they just don't have the time to explore on their own. But by having a more robust ecosystem of digital health companies, everybody's better off.
Well stated. And those are things that I wanted to touch more on that. We don't need this mic anymore. One of the reasons why I want to mention that is because we don't often think about joining with our competitors, but there's some very key, important reasons why we would want to. And so the whole point and purpose of talking a little bit about that is to talk about other ways of doing business, other things we may not think about. Some of these things are counterintuitive, right? Why would I want to partner with a competitor? Why in the world would I want to do that? But actually, there are some applications that make a great deal of sense, as we've heard some from our participants here. So thank you for that. Yes?
Just want to add a comment. It's especially true for startups.
is a partnership with an incumbent, a well-known incumbent in the industry to give you a hell of a lot of credibility, right? And it takes a lot of work to go from 0 miles per hour to 60 miles an hour. If you can jump on with somebody who's already got that brand awareness and sort of tag along, it can help.
Absolutely. That's a really excellent point. And yep, we're giving wealth of knowledge here.
One more example for those of you in the medical device or pharmaceutical space is that, you know, the regulatory affairs process is just cumbersome with a capital C. And there's something called a 510K exemption or exception, I'm not sure the exact phrase, which means if somebody's already invented a widget, you got the widget approved, and your device just has one little minor tweak, it's a much shorter regulatory process. So if you're starting up with something, and I had some direct experience with this, where a company that I was advising in medical imaging partnered with GE Medical Systems just to get the regulatory affairs stuff. They had this huge machinery of regulatory affairs people, got it done, and then they sort of piggybacked on that and did the 510K thing, which markedly shortened their goal line, if you will. So that's another big reason to think about that in that space.
Excellent comments. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Those are important things to keep in mind. There's other aspects of that too. When we're talking about not being as well known and being able to tag somebody that is more incumbent, that has a better reputation or a reputation period, there are also a lot of programs and grants and funding opportunities that require more well-known companies to work with smaller business, to be able to partner with them. And those are specific criteria to really try to encourage that and to really advocate for that. So there are some really interesting opportunities you can find and tap into and develop yourselves within that space. So I thought that was an important thing to touch on for us. And of course, you have those joint ventures, you have the buyer-supplier relationship, all sorts of ways to develop those partnerships. But I want you to have an eye towards developing those partnerships. You should always be on the lookout for people that you can develop that partnership with. In this room, too, you should be thinking about, you have a product that might be similar to you, and how can you both work together? So I know you have ebook glue, and Tom, you have stairs. So there are maybe some ways in that space to be able to collaborate and create some key partnerships. Same with the medical field, medical devices, and some of the medical care companies that we have. You should always be thinking about how can we take our resources, kind of combine them, create a partnership of some sort, whatever that may look like or what would be applicable, and how can that elevate what we're doing in our space. All right, so key activities. What's most important for the business? What are you up to? So key activities is going to be the most important activities that operate your business, that keep you operating. What does that look like? That's going to be production. Of course, what products are you producing? That's going to be a key activity because you have to produce your products to be able to get them to the market. Also, how you're problem solving. Maybe you're a service type of industry and you are problem solving for your customers. So those are going to be key activities that you do, where you're strategizing, consulting, that kind of thing. I know with Benson's work, what he does with his consultancy, he problem solves. He tries to add solutions to that. Your key activity could be in your platform or network, and I put eBay out here because they have to have a lot of activities surrounding their platform and their network to make sure that it's operational, because that's the crux of what they do. Same with Visa. They have to make sure that their platform is operating properly, so there's going to be a lot of time and effort into maintaining those platforms and those networks in order to keep their business going. So those are going to be very important key activities. So those are required, obviously, to create your value proposition. If you can't be doing something that's going to be going towards your customer segment, then you need to obviously focus a little bit more time on that. How you reach your customers. Your activities are going to be hopefully getting to your customer base, how you're getting to your customers, and how you're generating that revenue. Your key activities are all going to be about operating your business to fulfill your goal. Your cost structure. Now, what are your costs and expenses? And this is last because we really can't understand what money we need to spend until we understand all the other facets, right? we don't really know what that cost structure is until we know what our key activities are going to be, what our value proposition, who our customer segments, our channels. All of those things are going to help us frame the costs associated with our business model. So once we define the other 8 components, that's when we can figure out what costs are incurred. Now you'll find in this discovery process you're going to be embarking on that this may change, and it will change, and it should change, because you're going to discover things, either more efficient ways of doing things that are going to lower your costs, or maybe different partnerships that are going to add to that, or that's going to help, kind of spread out that risk, so it's going to lessen your costs. Or maybe you're finding a customer segment is a little too pricey for you, and it really doesn't make sense to incur those costs for what little revenue you're going to get from that particular segment. So these are things to look at once you are pretty content with the other 8 pieces. This is what you're going to take a look at. Obviously, we have different cost structures, and this is an entire series all on its own on pricing strategy. What does that look like? Are we cost-driven? So that's low cost or premium cost. Of course, Southwest is a great model for a low-cost airline. You know with Southwest, and we talked about customer expectations, what my customers expect of me. Well, with Southwest, do they expect a lap of luxury when you go on an aircraft? Is that what I expect when I fly Southwest? No. Do I expect to just have the superstar treatment, to be able to relax and get my legs up on the 2 inches of space that I've got? No. I'm expecting to pay less to get from here to there. I'm expecting no frills. I don't even know if they give peanuts out anymore. Do they? They do? Okay. I'm about to fly them this month, so that's good to know. But my expectation is based on their cost-driven model. They are very clear to that point. So this is how cost structure plays very well into your customer segment and what your expectation is. Now, if I can't remember which airline I was looking at, I saw an ad for the other day, and they are at the other end of that continuum. Boy, you do have an expectation that I expect to be pampered, I expect the lobster, I expect the champagne, I expect the kind treatment, plush, accommodations, plenty of legroom. I want to lie down, I want to be comfy, and I want to feel like I'm getting the 5-star treatment. But I'm going to pay a lot more for that. But that's, along with that premium price, I have that expectation that it's going to add much more value to my experience than cost-driven. So when you start getting more premium pricing, you typically start getting more into specific customer needs. It's a little bit more personalized because I'm paying a premium to get that much more. So I don't want to be on Southwest. I'm paying you so that I don't have to go through all that, like, herding cattle and getting on the aircraft and trying to fight for my seat. So we have to look at that cost structure and what we're really communicating with our cost structure as well. That's very, very important. One of the examples that's been given over the years, so you have maybe a Maserati, and let's say, Maseratis, I don't know the going price for them because I haven't been in the market for one ever, but if you have a Maserati and all of a sudden they come out with a very expensive, cheap version, it's like the Maserati 0.2 or whatever, and they're going to sell it for $15,000. Well, the person who spent the money for the expensive version doesn't want to have that brand cheapened, right? So companies like that have to be very careful with that cost structure as well and what kinds of products that they can price in the market in order to support that. So those are some very important considerations on the expectation level that you are bringing to your customer. Value-driven, obviously, as we talked about, this kind of doesn't always go hand in hand with premium pricing, but typically if we spend more, we expect more. But value-driven, when you start adding more value to that cost structure, that typically gets a lot more personalized. You find that a lot with service industries, you find that a lot with, value-driven means I have that expectation that you're going to know my name, you're going to know the things that I like with this service, you're going to know how I want to be treated with all of that, and so that's the value that you're bringing to me as a customer. So that's very important with the cost aspect as well. Now, I know that we have some companies in here that you are just getting yourselves going. Some of our startups, you're a class project. I'm talking about you, Team Link. And we've had some opportunities to sit and visit about that. So these types of things are things you're probably not as well versed on that need to know. These are important aspects. So we start thinking about cost structure and what that looks like. this is an important piece, and again, we can go for days on this because how you're going to be able to sustain your business is going to be very dependent on your cost structure. Whether you have what your fixed costs look like. Your fixed costs are things just exactly that. They're the same costs every single month. They're the same things every single month, and it doesn't change whether I sell 10 widgets or I sell 0 widgets. I still incur those costs every single month. So variable costs are going to be variable, tied to the amount of volume you do with your products and that sort of thing. So these are important elements that I encourage you all, if you're not as well versed on that, start diving into this, start getting to be comfortable with it. We do know that the financial aspect of when you're starting to go into this, it's a little scary, but it's something that is good to start diving into. But cost structure is a very important piece, but again, that's typically why we put it last, because once you understand the rest of what you're doing, you can start figuring out how much that's going to cost you. All right, so the business model canvas, we have a couple tips. We have a couple of the paper versions, and one of the ways that we like to explain this is maybe use Post-it notes. Be able to write one thought on a Post-it note. So let's say I have a value proposition that I'm going to have that's going to fit a particular customer segment. Let's say I use a pink Post-it note for those because they match. All right, so if we want to use the Facebook model, so maybe the payees, the advertisers, they're going to have a different value proposition. They're a different customer segment than me as a free user. So you want to make sure those are separate, all right? That they look separate because they are separate. So color coding is a very good idea. Have one thought per Post-it, if you will, on your business model canvas. The reason behind that is that if you don't have that one thought, you may confuse a customer segment as one segment when they're actually two. Or you may think it's a customer segment, but in reality, they're a key partner. So it's easy to kind of change things up, all right? So this is meant to be a quicker exercise than obviously a business plan type of scenario. And I know Benson's taught this, and I've watched him teach this many times. He puts it a little bit differently than I'm going to put it to you, but don't overthink it. All right, so keep it simple. The KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. Don't overthink it. This is meant to be clear, concise ideas and very simple so that you can really kind of focus in on some of those things. So those are kind of the ground rules for a business model canvas. And at the end of the day, this is all it is, a bunch of guesses. Do you really know yet your cost structure? Do you really know your customer segment? Have you validated that yet? No. All right, so that's the whole exercise about this, is that these are guesses, and we're entrepreneurial scientists. We're going to develop tests to be able to find out, are we validating this? Is it true? Is my guess correct? Is my assumption right? Or is it wrong? And we have to go back to the drawing board and create another test. We have another hypothesis. We have another guess on that. And Benson, you're good on that topic. Is there anything you want to add on that?
On the guessing?
On the guessing. On the hypothesis.
I think the thing to understand here is just that you've got to continuously stay at it, right? You can't assume that you're done until you're actually completely done. Until you've actually validated every single one of those boxes, you just don't know yet that your business model is repeatable, that it's scalable, that it's profitable, or at least that it's not those things in the most efficient way. If that makes sense. So, for example, if you get all the way through and you neglect to go out and test with various key partners, you may be losing out on something that you just don't know because you didn't get out and take a look at that. So I just can't express that with enough passion that you really have to stay consistent with this and constantly go out and test these things until you're completely done. And even when you're completely done, then you're just in execution mode of the current business model, but you should always be constantly searching for the new model that's going to disrupt the current model that's working, right? And I can give you tons of examples of people who've done that really well, but another time.
Thank you, Vincent. All right, and he's absolutely right. Basically, we're here in search mode. when we start doing the customer discovery process, and this is what we're going to dive more fully into next week, but I want to give you some framework of what you need to be doing in the next week. So we are trying to discover what our customers really want, and we need to validate, are our assumptions correct? Did I make the correct assumption about my customer? Do they really want this product that I have to give them? And if so, then I validate that, and then I can execute that. Great, now I can produce these products because I know somebody wants them. All right, but if not, I have to pivot, which means, you know what? Maybe they just didn't want this, but maybe it's this over here. Or maybe I iterate, which means we make some slight changes to that. One of the things that I like to bring up as an example is, you know, I have this idea of a cell phone, and it's going to be the shape of a pen. Right? I think I've got my pen over here. And it's going to be very robust, and it's a good idea because, you know, we're all used to holding pens in our hands. You know, we put them in our pockets. We can, you know, access them easily. We're comfortable holding a pen like this. I usually have one in my hands. What if it's a phone? And what if it has this very robust data feature on it and video conferencing, and I can maybe record movies on it. I don't know why you want to watch movies on this, but let's just play this out and say you did. And so I'm thinking, God, this would be great. And so I think, I know there's a market for this. And I hand you this, and we're going to talk about minimal viable product in a minute, but I hand you this and you go, I don't like that as a phone at all. So all the features, all the things that I think you wanted, once I talked to you, you said, that's terrible. I wouldn't want that. So before I start really figuring out if this is what you want, I have to talk to you. I need to validate that. And you say, no, that's a terrible idea. That's how we're able to figure out if we're still in search mode or if we're in execution mode. And we will talk more about a minimal viable product, basically finding out, and I'll just touch on it very quickly, but it seems counterintuitive to say you wouldn't want to try to talk to your potential customers about a product that you haven't built out all the features and value added on this, right? You think that that's going to be something that they want to hear about. They want to know everything it can do, and that's really what you're bringing to their table. But the reality is, if you don't even like the feel of this, all the features I put on this, that don't matter, right? Doesn't matter. So it's very important to get out and start testing something. And so we're going to be testing these hypotheses as we go about the customer discovery process. And we're going to get through the last part of this, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to have some of our folks who did your preliminary business model canvas take a go at it. We're going to get some feedback. I know they're very preliminary, so we're going to be kind, but give you some good feedback, and then we're going to have some takeaways and wrap-ups. That's what we're going to be doing for the next little bit here. So how do we do this? How do we convert our assumptions into facts? Well, we are going to seek product market fit. That means, is there a market for my product? It's pretty much that simple. It sounds simple. In reality, it's not as simple as that. We all know that. But that's ultimately what we're trying to do, how we test that assumption. We validate our assumptions, not with us. We can theorize about that all day long. We can sit there and talk to ourselves and say, God, this would be great. And it reminds me, when I said at the onset, that working with startups is a lot like working with bands. Because if you have a band, and they're sitting there and they're playing in their garage, and they've got the girlfriends, and they've got the friends, whatever, and they're hanging out, they're like, oh my God, that sounds so cool. And they get up and they play a show, and they're like, that is terrible. I cannot believe I spent money on watching this. But you don't really have any true validation if you're not really getting out and talking to those customers. So in that framework, the artist, when you're just getting the girlfriend feedback, what is she going to tell you? That was terrible. She's like, yeah, you rock, you're awesome. So it's the same kind of thing when we actually talk to our customers. It's very different, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So again, we're trying to find a scalable, repeatable business model. So how we get out of the building. We don't find the answers in here, you find them out there. And I discovered when I first did the slide that this is very misleading because it sounds like when we get out of the building, we have to stop. So ignore that little stop sign there. We actually get out of the building, we go. So I should have had a green light. But before we begin, what are we not going to do? We're not going to try to be all things to all people, because that doesn't work. We have to narrow the focus down. And one of the misconceptions, and I always love when I hear this, they're like, you know, I've got this great product, and there's 320 million people in the United States, and they're all gonna love it. No, they're not. No, they're not. And that shows several things. That first of all, you don't know anything about your market. You don't know anything about your market size. You don't know anything about your potential customer because you're putting a blanket on the whole thing, and that's not realistic, and that's not smart. So again, develop the product with features before customer development. It wouldn't make sense for me to put all the features in that little pen of a phone if you don't even like holding that pen as a phone. So it doesn't matter what else I put in there because all of that was wasted time, effort, energy, money, resources on putting all these features in this because you won't buy this no matter what it's got in it. Even if it could put you on the moon, you're not interested. So taking the time to put all those features into it before I find out what you're really interested in, then we add those features based on what your feedback is. So we don't create our business plan before you validate, because a business plan, again, is based on historical data. If we're just in assumption and hypothesis phase, we don't have historical data to go on to predict future behavior based on past what. We don't have that past what. So we can't create that. That's not realistic. It's not plausible. And it's a waste of time. So before we begin to, customer feedback can vary wildly from customer behavior. Let me repeat that. Customer feedback can vary wildly from customer behavior. So what does that mean? I'll give you a great example of what that means. All the years I spent in radio, we did a lot of radio research, right? So we were very curious of our target demographic. It was always, if it's rock radio, it's typically males 25 to 34 you're going after. If it's more of an adult contemporary, like a K-Light or a KZ or what have you, the Peak now, it's usually females. So we try to go after our target demographic. And the key is what songs do you really want to listen to? What do you really want to listen to? What can we play so you'll tune in for a long period of time? And so we would do all these different radio auditorium testing. We used to call people and say, well, what radio station you listen to? And I always found flaws in this research because people, first of all, would try to use it as an absolute, which is a mistake, but people would get data that they really didn't know how to use. So we would do this radio auditorium test and we'd gather our sample demographic, we'd put them all in a room, we'd give them those little devices that they could rate the songs as they're hearing the songs. We put a lot of effort into what we call a hook, so that's the most recognizable part of a song, it's usually a chorus, and we would have people rate the songs, and we would rate them, and we'd compile this data, spend a lot of money. I think these radio listening surveys were about 50 grand to our marketing research company, and every time, I know when I worked at KDKB, every time we'd get the #1 song was Leonard Skinner, something or other. You're like, are you serious? How many times can we hear Sweet Home Alabama? And people still don't hear it after 7 zillion years. And so we played a lot and people would tune out. So what's the fallacy of that? People said, hey, this is what we love. I love that song, that's awesome. But their behavior was different, and I'll tell you why. Because when you're sitting there and somebody says, hey, what do you think about this? Do you like this? And I may have some good memories associated with that, some fondness, maybe as the Stones. I remember going to see them in concert, and it was great. And I'm like, yeah, I've got that, I've got that sentimental vibe going on with that. I'm gonna give them a ranking, I don't want to disappoint. And so, but that is gonna look very different than when I'm sitting in my car on my way to work and I'm really not in the mood to hear the song again, but maybe I want to hear the news, or I want to figure out, maybe I'm down, I want to hear something upbeat. It's gonna be very different than my behavior. So consider that when you talk to those customers, you get out of the building, that's going to be very different. And it's going to be very different depending on who you talk to. So if I am going to ask Jameson something, I'm going to say, Jameson, what do you think of this? Well, you may be afraid that if you say, God, Tracy, that's terrible, I'm going to be like, well, whatever, Jameson, thanks. So you may want to give me information, maybe, think to validate that we're friends, or to say, hey, that's a really good idea, but in reality, if you go to the store, you may not buy what I'm asking you about. So that's very tricky on how you really get the right information from potential customers. And I wish there was that $1 million answer I could give you, but it takes some time, it takes really observing that behavior, it really takes a lot of just, instead of trying to get the answer you're hoping for, getting the answer that is the real answer. Okay, does that make sense? And that's a very interesting study to me. I've always watched over the years as people take research and they make it an absolute, and that's a huge mistake. So, your founder's role, why must you lead your team? Why must you be out there in the trenches talking to your customers? Can you tell me why? Instead of sending somebody else out to do it. You're busy, you got schoolwork, you got a job. Why would you send somebody else out instead of you? Why would you put you out there?
As a founder of close passion, you can connect with the users better than just someone you hired or just any other person.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, but also there's another side of that too, which is maybe you're so bent on your idea. And you send me out, and I'm like, you know what, Heman, people don't like it. I'm trying to tell you, they don't like it. You're like, but I know, maybe you just didn't talk to enough people, you didn't ask the right questions. Like, no, I'm telling you, they really don't like it. And they're afraid to, you know, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Like, okay, no, I don't, no, we're going to keep going because you just didn't know how to talk to them, right? It's very hard for founders to really accept, sometimes, which is a hard truth. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. If you are out there engaging, talking, finding out, getting that information, it's easier for you to digest that. Hopefully, it's easier for you. I mean, sometimes it's not easy. But it's very easy to kind of pass off and still hold on to your idea so tightly if you're not out there in the trenches. And you need to be. You need to be fully vested out there in the trenches. You look like you were going to say something. No. No. You're like, no. So we're going to quickly cover this and we're going to take a break. But essentially think about your science class and how you would have your experiments and what that looked like. So first of all, we have the hypothesis. Your business model canvas is your hypothesis. That's your test. That's your assumption. So what are you going to do? You're stating, this is what people are going to like, and this is what this is going to be. This is how I'm guessing my business model canvas is going to play out. So you're going to state your hypothesis, which is your business model canvas. Then you're going to test the problem. Does a problem exist? Are people pained enough with that problem that there is a problem? Or is it just a minor, inconvenience that people really don't need a solution for? Or is there really a problem? So you need to test the problem, and then along those lines, which these two go together, you test the solution. So you discover that there's a problem, you test the problem, you find out, yes, there is in fact a problem, and then you test the solution. Does it work? Does it fix the problem? Or does it not? It may fix the problem, but it may be not worth fixing the problem. So there's a lot of ways you can discover this, and there's a lot of, you can slice that in a million different ways. But let's say you test the solution and either somebody says, yes, it worked, then you have validation, then you can execute. If they say, no, that did not work at all, then you know that you need to pivot. So you pivot or proceed. If it works, people like it, then you move on. If not, and again, as Benson pointed out, you're always hoping to keep developing, keep going, keep moving. You're never really at the finish line, right? All right, so stating your hypothesis, you need to know your market size. We talked a little bit about this before. Basically, we take the total available market, and that doesn't mean everybody in the world. That doesn't mean all 320 million people in the United States, if you're looking at the US market. That does not mean that. That means, let's say you have a product that's specific to young mothers. So that's your total available market, all young mothers. And for practical purposes, you want to look in smaller areas. We're not looking at every young mother ever, but maybe in Arizona, maybe the Phoenix metro area, or maybe the East Valley. Then you look at your served available market. You start narrowing down the field then. So who can you really start narrowing it down? Maybe there's some other aspects to that. Maybe young mothers that are not married, or young mothers that have kids under 3. Then you look at your target market. Who can you realistically hit? So if you look at like a bullseye, how close do I need to get before I can realistically hit the bullseye? So if you're trying to get too far away from that, and you're not really narrowing it down, you're not going to hit that mark, right? So it's important to start thinking about your available market. Somebody mentioned to me, and I'm not going to say who, was asking me about they had trouble finding some market data about your product. There's always a way to find out about your potential market. There's always the data out there. So it's important to do your research and try to find out where those people are.
It's called Google.
Thank you, Benson. Google it. Believe me, and there's somebody else that wanted to spend a bunch of money on market research. Well, you can find it anywhere these days, yes.
ASU has awesome tools for students or anybody that has an right, login, that gives you access to all of like First Research and Hoover's data for like any industry. So if you want any questions about how to get that data, it's top quality. It's free for all students. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jameson. All right, so market research, before you get out of the building, you need some idea of who and where your customers are. So if you are wanting to talk to maybe young moms, are you probably going to go to, I don't know, the bar at midnight? Probably not your target market if that's where you find some of those folks, but you need to find out where they are. If you're interested in people who love horses, you're probably going to want to go to where they are, right? So it's important that you're going to get very different information from those people that are maybe on, working on a ranch versus if you just go out to McDowell Road and talk to the first person that you see there. So you need to find out where they are. Now, you also need to recognize again that market research is based on historical data. If it was an absolute, if we knew we could extrapolate that and it would be 100% correct, we'd all know the answer to this puzzle, right? So keep that in mind. It's merely a tool and not an absolute, which I emphasized quite a few times, because I think that's an important thing. So how do we talk to our customers? We know where they are. Oh yes, we have a comment back there.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Can you discuss the difference between anecdotal data and empirical data, and how these young entrepreneurs should treat each?
Do you want to discuss that? Do you look like you're ready to go? We would love your insight, actually. We would love your insight.
Obviously, there's two types of data. There's anecdotal data where it hasn't been scientifically vetted, and that's kind of your man in the street interviews and things like that. And those are subject to a lot of variables that you may be able to ferret out or you may not be able to ferret out. So in general, anecdotal data will be less persuasive to both the prospective investor and also to entrepreneurs than empirical data. But even empirical data, you have to determine whether it truly addresses the questions that you're asking, because like anything else, statistics can be bent in many different ways. So just as journalists double check, try and get 2 or 3 sources to confirm a particular finding, I would encourage entrepreneurs to do the same thing. And if you come to a conclusion, either by anecdotal or empirical data, and I would suggest that you weight the empirical data more highly, I would still suggest that you try and confirm that with additional sources, so that you don't just run with a singular conclusion based on a sole source.
And that's very good information. And the problem with that world right now is that it's so misleading when you try to search for information on where exactly that information comes from, how reliable it is, whether it's, and there's so much out there right now that is not accurate, and I appreciate your comments on that. The other interesting thing when you talk about the journalism aspect, we used to have a rule of thumb where if we were going to try to find something out, you would find commonalities across multiple sources, and then you knew you were onto something. But if you found a little snippet over here and nobody else was talking about it, maybe that's kind of questionable, or maybe it's not reliable or verifiable. We see a lot of that in the political scheme right now too, when you talk about what types of questions, because I can get whatever answer. If I'm really bent on this direction, I want it to go this way, I can ask the question so it goes this way. Conversely, I can have it go this direction too. So how you get that information from people is very, very important. If I'm really bent on getting the answer I want to hear, I can craft the questions so I get that proper response. Yes, Heather?
And so it all comes back to customer behavior and figuring out how can we observe actual behaviors in the marketplace today. Right? And so your tests and your experiments to either validate or invalidate your assumptions need to be so good that they literally mimic the way that somebody would buy these things before you actually even build them sometimes.
So you're talking about uncontrolled situations, which are opposed to controlled environments where you can dictate the outcomes.
Exactly, and you will, all of you will try to dictate the outcomes, I guarantee it. So you have to, as best as possible, put yourself in an uncontrolled environment to where you can actually observe what your customer segments are going to do when presented with your value proposition.
Absolutely, and I agree wholeheartedly. And that's what we talk about, auditory testing versus actual behavior, because we think if we ask certain questions and we want to get certain answers, and conversely, be careful too as the startups, because you may have people that want to help you or want to be partners with you or want to maybe invest, and they say, oh, this is what people are saying about me, or this is what you need to be careful on those things too. So it's a two-way street on that as well, on how you're getting feedback from your customers, or also people that are wanting to work with you or want to someday, you need to make sure that what they assert is accurate as well. So there's a lot, and especially this digital age now, there's so much out there, and you have so many people that just don't know what is accurate and what's not. But they base a lot of their decisions based on some of this inaccurate data. So just a little caution there. I appreciate the questions and those things. The market research aspect and how you talk to customers and the information you get is a fascinating study to me, because again, you can get exactly what you're gearing for, or you can have a little bit more different ways you go about those tests to get the information you really should have versus the information you really want to have. There's a big difference on that. So empathy versus sympathy. When we're talking to customers, you're trying to find out, you will find out a lot, especially when you ask them to describe their experiences. Anybody that has been around me the last couple weeks knows, especially James and I have talked about this a lot, my little issue with my car repair in the last couple weeks, and what a disaster that was. And so if you say, oh my God, I heard you got stranded for the umpteenth time after you paid X amount of dollars and the same shop's a ton. Yes. So I paid them this much, they said they fixed this, and this happened, we were stranded, and for 2 hours, you're going to hear me tell you all about it and give you that experience. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it because it was But when you start listening to what your customers are telling you versus what you want to hear, you're going to get a lot of information from them, and let them describe it, let them tell the story, and then listen. And as Benson pointed out too, watch what they do. People will give you a lot of insight if you just observe their behavior. Instead of, and it's reverse, so you think you may want to go out and say, I've got this great product and I know it's going to meet your needs, and I know you're really going to love it, and you're going to be able to use it like this, you're going to do it like this, and it's going to be so awesome for you. Are you getting any information from your customer that way, or are you just trying to sell them? Right? You're just trying to sell them. I didn't get any feedback from you if I'm just telling you how great this product is and how much you're going to love it. Am I really getting any insight from you if that's the case? But a lot of people make that mistake. A lot of people go about it the reverse. They think if I can go out and sell it, I've got something. Instead of listening, you'll find out what people really do want. So again, the storytelling is very important. Empathy versus sympathy. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm so sorry about that. But you know what? If you really put yourself in their shoes, start to see it from their point of view and their frame of reference, you get a lot of different details on that too. And sometimes that's very hard to do. All right, so we want to figure out the customers that we want to talk to and the decision makers. So we want to figure out the buyers versus the end users. This is important in big contracts, because if I'm going to try to sell a lot of products to a bunch of users, and if they don't like it, if it's not functional for them, you need to make sure that the users are actually interested in what you're trying to sell them or the products you have. Also, make sure that you're talking to the decision makers. We talk a lot about, especially in markets like with kids, that have kids, they really try to target some of the ads to the kids, because the kids, can really persuade mom. I know my son has had that power over me for a long time, so if you get him convinced, it will convince me too. So you have to figure out who those decision makers are. And those decision makers may be different than the buyers, but they are still very important. And also influencers versus no skin in the game. So you're not going to get a lot of information out of somebody that really doesn't have anything vested in what you potentially are trying to find out. information about this particular product, or if it's important to them, if they have no skin in that game, you're not going to get the information that you need. So just be careful on those customer segments and who you're talking to and why you need to talk to them. So we're going to test the problem. Does the problem exist? And is it a serious enough problem? We may have those nuances or those inconveniences or things that happen, and it's really not worth my time to buy something to alleviate it. It's not that big of a deal. You know, maybe there's like a, I don't know, maybe there's something that happens with my shampoo bottle or whatever, but it's not that big of a deal that I need to find another one. So we need to figure out, does the problem exist and is it serious enough? Is it worth anything and anybody's time, worth our money? We do create problems sometimes, as we mentioned before. We didn't know we would be lost without smartphones until we had them. So we have certain things, and there's a lot of debate on people saying, you know, is there really a problem, or do we create problems? And in reality, we create problems all the time. You just don't know it yet. You don't know you had that problem until I created a product to solve that problem. So that's another discussion entirely. So we test the problem, we become our entrepreneurial scientists, if you will, and we get out there and we talk to our customers. So, and this is in your binders too, so we're not going to spend a lot more time on this, but this is because this is going to carry over into next week's discussion as well. We're going to get a lot more into the weeds on customer discovery next week. But you're going to design the experiments based on your hypothesis, obviously. Prepare to engage with your customers. You're going to get out and talk to them. You're going to find out if that's a problem with them and assess its importance. Is it important enough? You need to understand your customers. What do they really need from you? What do they really need alleviated in their lives? What do they really want? And gather that knowledge about the market and your customers and put it to use. So again, we talked about, we're going to go into this next week, what pain am I alleviating for my customer and what gain am I creating? You don't have to always do both. Sometimes it could just be one, just creating a gain for them. It doesn't always have to be a pain that you're relieving for them, but they can both apply as well, like we talked about with the tax scenario. So once you test the solution, you're going to update your business model canvas. You're going to find out some interesting discoveries. What changed? Did you have assumptions that, yeah, you know, I was pretty on target with that? And what didn't have, what wasn't what you thought it was? What stayed the same, what changed, and why? What did you discover out of that process? What did you learn about it? And I want you to really examine why that changed. What information did you glean this week from your customers that made that different for you? All right, so now we can get some feedback on the features. Only if that solution passes the test and you have people that say, yes, this is something that I really think is going to be great. If you say, yes, I would love a cell phone that is the shape of a pen. That's perfect. I've been looking for this my whole entire life. I'm like, awesome, I'm going to start developing some. What kind of features would you like with that pen cell phone? What else is important to you there? What else can go along with that you're really looking for, that solution? So that's when we start getting feedback on features. So a couple of interesting final tips on this is that it's very important to assemble a reliable board of advisors. You all can start tonight even by talking to some of the mentors here with each other, trying to get some people that can give you some good direction. Also, people that can assist in your design and production. This is helping to build out your team. You want people that have initial interest in what you're doing, that can really have some skin in the game, if you will, on their skill sets that match what you're trying to do. And keep that engagement. If you're going to have people on board as a board of advisors, you want to keep them engaged. You want to be able to develop and nurture those relationships because they're going to be very important to you. So phase 4, we either pivot or proceed. If we can verify our business model, we proceed, we execute. If not, then we pivot. We have to change. We have to figure out this product is not what I thought people wanted. They want it over here, and this is the direction we're going to go now. So you need to get audit information and adjust that on your business model canvas. So the litmus test is, have we achieved that product market fit? Do you, customer, want what I have to sell or not? Do we identify our customers? Am I really finding out that this is who might buy my product? Where are they and who are they? Can we reach them? And this is an important element too, because we may identify the customers, we may know where they are, but if I can't reach my customer, how in the world can they be customers? So it's important that we are able to do that as well. And is it profitable? Can I grow this? Can we develop this further? Those are important things. You may find out that somebody really wants the product, but you don't have a big enough market to sustain it. So those are important components as well. So Again, this is in your booklets tonight, so take a look at that. About pivoting, which is a major change in one or more of your business model canvas components. And iteration is a minor adjustment. Like, well, you know, I'm kind of on track, but I need to maybe modify it a little bit. And pivot is like, hey, whoa, have to go over here this way. And that's when you get your customer feedback. So best practices are quick to fail. Don't be afraid to let go. This is what we see a lot of with our startups, that you are so bent on having this product. You've put all your energy and passion and effort and everything into it. And somebody says, I don't want it. You're like, no, I know you do. It's like trying to find that lost love. That I know you're going to love me someday, just please. So it's hard to let go. Very close to it, but you have to be willing to let go and make those adjustments with that. Make sure you have your solid advisory board, people in your corner that are going to really give it to you straight and be able to help guide you and give you that direction. An outstanding team, we talked about that as well, and customer focus, that's the whole point and purpose. So with that, any questions? Yes?
I had a comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to make it's around this area of customers, because what Tracy is saying is go out and talk to your customers. The reality is you normally have more customers than you think you do. Like, if I understand your company, you're talking about an automatic shut-off valve for leaking water pipes. So your first customer that comes to mind is a homeowner, obviously, right? The ones that have damage. But when you think about it, who has more at stake financially? It's the insurance companies, right? So the insurance companies are actually customers here. And the people who are going to put it in, the tradesmen, the plumbers, right? They're going to want to use a product that they can put in economically and make money at, right? And so that's yet another group of customers. And, you know, in almost every business I've been involved in has multiple customer segments. And the most successful approaches are where you consider all of those, right? Because the value proposition for the homeowner may be vastly different than the value proposition for the plumber, for the insurance company. And I'd venture to say probably the majority of businesses have those multiple levels, and you've got to think sort of multidimensionally. And I don't want to scare you off from talking to your customers, but I guess the message is what you want to do is you want to cast as wide a net as you can, right? And that way you get a real understanding of the value proposition, because you could pivot. I don't know if that's the right use of the term, from saying, you know, I'm going to go to Home Depot and get Home Depot to put this on the shelf. You could pivot to the insurance company and say, look, you guys do marketing and pitch a discount to the customers, and I'll market it directly to the tradesmen, right? You know, or do some combination of the two. So think of that segmentation as you talk about customers. And then you got the traditional customer segmentation where, you know, it might be frequent flyers versus, you know, casual flyers and sort of things. But even those categories, you've got the flyer themselves as one decision maker. Travel agents, although they're becoming less important these days, is another decision maker, right? And you have to think about all, you know, three-dimensional roles.
That's great feedback. And don't mistake casting a wide net with trying to help all people, because casting a wide net is basically understanding your various customer segments. Yes, Vince?
Let me iterate what he said. He said the most successful companies are the ones who consider all customer segments, but to take it further, only focus on a few, but they understand them all.
Exactly. Tracy?
Yes?
I get confused with how we're using the term customer. To me, a customer is somebody who pays me money, not an insurance industry. The insurance industry is a market segment that has potential customers in it. So I think when we talk about how we go out and talk to customers, are we talking about, because I would talk to a real customer differently. When you talk to a real customer, what they need, you can't separate out the sales call. You can't, you know, whereas if you're going to go out and talk to a segment about what they potentially need, if they were customers, you talk to them differently. So I'm confused at how we're using the term customer.
Well, I think in a broad scope of that, and I'll let Benson chime in, anybody else that wants to, but it's important that you know who all are stakeholders in that respect, who affects what you're doing. So if you're talking about like a medical device, it's going to have an impact on insurance companies, it's going to have an impact on doctors, on hospitals, on patients, there are people that you're touching with all of that. So it's important to understand who all the players are that can interrelate or have some kind of aspect that's going to either drive that business. So if you look at like a medical device, insurance company, their considerations are important because it may impact whether the customer, one of the customers, the patient, is able to go through that procedure and pay or not, or what have you. So there was the role of the insurance company on their interface with that is going to be dependent on other factors that are involved in the payers. So there's a lot of different intermingling, I guess you could say, and a lot of, you can't really look at each one in a vacuum. I understand how, and that's a lot of how do we figure all that out? I mean, these are interesting challenges on how we view that.
If I go and talk to a real customer and the customer says, I need X, Y, Z from your product, I go back to the office and I put that on a list that customer has that requirement, and then I deal with it. If it's a potential customer who I'm fishing for information, it's a totally different process.
Well, I would agree with you. I think a customer is ultimately the one who will pay for your product or service. I think perhaps the point that's being made is that in establishing your value proposition, getting your product or service in front of that customer, getting it priced properly, that there may be players in that chain that will impact what you ultimately present to the customer. So in your example of a medical device, the customer may indeed be the patient who ultimately pays for it. However, to the extent that the insurance company will reimburse for that payment, that would affect the whole sales process with the ultimate customer, the patient. So, so I agree with you in the sense that the customer is ultimately where the payment is coming from, but you need to understand the whole system that surrounds a particular customer in order to understand how to sell effectively. And then, as entrepreneurs, usually you need to decide where your low-hanging fruit lies so that you can gain traction fairly quickly. And because once you start, and I think in terms of investment, because ultimately entrepreneurial ventures generally are not going to be self-sustaining. They're going to require capital along the way. And so what you're trying to do for investors is reduce uncertainty for them so that they can invest in you at a lower cost of capital than you'd experience if a lot of uncertainty existed. So this customer validation process, for instance, reduces risk on the part of an investor into your business. If that investor knows that you've identified customers, that you've got a few paying customers, that individual can have greater confidence that you know how to find your customer, you know who your customer is, you know how to find the customer, you've presented a product or service that customers are willing to pay, and that you've priced it in a fashion that has attracted customers and created traction. That, for an investor, greatly reduces uncertainty compared to, I have an idea, and I think these are my customers, and I think I've got it priced correctly, and I think they'll want it. And so you need, in my experience, you need to think through that whole process, pick your low-hanging fruit so you can gain traction quickly, and get that customer validation that can then allow you to raise the funds necessary in order to test your other hypotheses, explore other markets, and more deeply penetrate the one that you've already established traction.
Excellent points. And these are all great considerations. And Jeff, to your point too, I think one of the ways that as you're first going out to try to talk to your customers, I think the stepping off point is to identify that that person who will purchase that product. There's some stepping off points that instead of, these are all important considerations, and wow, there's a lot of different ways to approach it, different ways to look at it, and different things that can impact how you go about that process. But there's a lot of aspects to that, and that's what we talk about too with the business model canvas, to keep the sticky notes to one thought too, because you may find that customer segment is actually a key partner instead. You may find that those are different, and so it's very important that you really seek to understand how those relationships work and what that looks like for you. So we're going on 11:45. I was going to give everybody a break, and then we were going to come back. But would you all rather just have a couple of our groups do their business model canvas, and then we'll maybe wrap up a little early? Everybody good with that? Okay. All right. And great discussions, and I appreciate everybody's input here and feedback. I think this is the value we get out of the group on getting different points of view, getting different insights that gets us to think about these things, and that's the most important thing. Is how do we think about our business? How do we think about our customers? And how do we think about that process? So it's really important that we do get this input from everybody. So I would like to find maybe, we'll do 3 companies that want to pitch their business model canvas very quickly, get some early feedback, and then we're going to do some takeaways, and then we'll do wrap up. Jameson, you want to go?
We also believe we bring value to standalone car repair shops through qualified leads and saving them money in advertising. For our customer segments, like I mentioned, out-of-warranty car drivers are what we believe to be our customers, which at the moment we feel is women between the ages of 28 and 40. And that standalone repair shops do want to be part of the Repair Report network, specifically the ones that are struggling, looking for growth, and that are advertising intensive. We believe we can reach our drivers, the yellow or the green segment, through web marketing. We also believe that we can reach a repair shop through account executive or direct sales. We believe that we can maintain customer relationships through some sort of a CRM tool with drivers. Also adding additional products and services to grow and keep our customers. We believe that we can maintain those relationships with repair shops through account executives, just kind of overwatching certain areas, making sure that everything's going well. And we believe that after we successfully place a repair at a repair shop, so if I'm the driver, 30 minutes after repair, I've got 5 offers here. I can either choose to stay or go to the repair shop. The repair shop that I end up choosing to take my car to get repaired, we take 10% of the cost of repair. That's what we assume is our revenue model. Our key activities, obviously we need to reach drivers, so marketing is a big part of our activities that we believe. Direct sales to repair shops. Obviously having a software where the drivers and repair shops can meet online. And we believe that educating stakeholders is going to be an integral part in the success of our business model. Because this is kind of a different way to approach auto repairs, people can get confused. And so if they're not properly educated, they could get lost or just walk away. So our key resources, we believe, are our network of shops. Because if we don't have that, drivers aren't going to go anywhere. There's nowhere to deliver the service, as well as a software application. I mentioned a few more like IP and stuff, but those are kind of the bread and butter. For key partners, we believe that institutions that offer free check engine light diagnosis would be good partners because those are qualified leads for repair shops, people that think they need service for their car. Also, part sales partners like an AutoZone or an O'Reilly's, because all of our repairs you have to put a part in those cars being repaired. Commercial sales to repair shops will be driven by leads, because if the repair shop isn't getting new leads, why would they buy commercial parts? So that's kind of a part that we believe will be important. And then one partner that's not up there is, what was it? So I was having some problems, obviously, with the program when I was inputting some things, but now going down to cost structure, we believe that marketing, direct sales, and the administrative costs, as well as the software development and maintenance costs, are going to be the bulk of our cost structure. So that is the assumption of the repair report business model. So, yeah.
Okay, any feedback from that? And one of the things that we're going to be doing as we go along, so next week the teams are going to be reporting out at the onset. And some of the things you may get feedback on are, one of the things I caught on to, why did you choose females, 28 to 40? What feedback did you get? How did you come to that decision?
That was back to customer feedback. A little while back we did do surveys, and aside from some surveys that showed that women were most dissatisfied, we found some industry reports that showed that women didn't like the auto repair process. I don't like it. So, but women are obviously our target, so that's why we chose that. Yeah.
My daughter is an auto mechanic, and the first thing
I've actually never heard of a female auto mechanic. That's good.
You need to get out more.
Get out.
So the first thing she would say to me in that situation, she wouldn't trust the opinion of another.
Right. No, it's definitely true. And the problem that exists, so aside from misdiagnosis issues, a lot of it's misinformation issues. So for example, if the first repair shop properly diagnoses it, but what if the driver isn't given the full details, and then they use the partial information to get an estimate from some other shop, it's going to lead to a faulty estimate and a bad experience. Also, if it's misdiagnosed, that's an issue. But even if the full information is given to the driver, but they don't understand the details, because I'm not very technical, they're going to have an issue conveying the proper diagnosis to the other repair shop, and then so that the proper estimate can be generated. So our software kind of solves that problem with mechanics are actually speaking directly to other mechanics through our software instead of playing a telephone game through a driver for the estimate. So there's more than just misdiagnosis issues that do with faulty estimates. Yeah.
If I remember correctly during the introduction, you said that you hope to learn a go-to-market strategy. Is that right?
Correct.
And as you described it, I can understand why. Because you've got the classic challenge of having something that likely doesn't have a lot of intellectual property protection available to it. It's a good idea, and if you launch it in a regional or local way, run the risk that people see it and they very quickly replicate what you're doing. And so which is a classic startup issue. And so I think you're wise in recognizing that one of your principal issues is your go-to-market strategy. You're going to have to decide how quickly you scale and how you are going to launch local, regionally, nationally, and what creates a critical mass of providers that is sufficient within a given zip code to generate the type of competition and comfort that a prospective customer would require in order to trust your service.
Definitely.
Have you thought of that? Have you looked into what management structures are in place in large auto mechanic environments, in terms of how they interact with their parts suppliers, et cetera, and how your management structure would fit in with that?
I don't fully understand the question.
Well, in other words, you go in there and you say, hey, I got this brand new management, and now you got to go learn a whole bunch of new stuff, or hey, we've looked at there's a standard parts management thing, and here's how we relate to that, and here's how we relate to that. Really important.
No, I understand that. There's really no industry standard or uniform, customer acquisition tool for the auto industry. So
and the big guys are de facto standards. So So it doesn't need to be an industry standard. What are the usual ways of doing things? And if you come in with a brand new management structure, hey, learn all of this from scratch. That's a lot harder to sell.
It's basically a simple input of information, and then the system does it. So it's not very complicated.
I saw some integration with parts suppliers and things like that.
Yeah, that would be just value added.
Two more.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick question. I wonder, I can see the value of the consumer side, obviously. How do the repair shops react to this? Because obviously it's creating a more competitive environment.
Right, that's a great question. So the reason why repair shops benefit, through interacting with customers, we've learned that the average customer acquisition cost for repair shops requiring a driver is between $75 and $150 through traditional advertising. I mean, in some shops, when I say that, they say it's higher than that. And so because the average ticket price for repair is about $300, 10% of that is a fraction of that acquisition cost, aside from the fact that it's not with the risk of traditional advertising. Because with traditional advertising, a lot of it can be, let's see what sticks and let's see what returns. So,
if I can follow up with it.
Go ahead.
That's kind of,
here. Yep, speak in that.
That's kind of the research side of it, right? And the numbers are probably valid. Customer acquisition costs are high. What I was really asking is what's the gut reaction of the owner of the shop?
Right.
Does he like the program or does he not?
Or is it sort of hated love?
They're willing to try new things. Right now, 1 in 2 shops are signing up as we approach them, so there is positive. They are embracing, the option. So right now we have 26 shops in the greater Phoenix area. Our goal is between 80 and 100. So we still have a lot of work to do, but they're signing up. They're committed to offering the value that we're talking about.
Let's do one more question.
Real quick, I see a problem with your revenue stream, recurring revenue stream, in that once I find a mechanic that I like, why would I go back to your system to get another bid? Because I found out I trust them. The premise is trust. Why would I go back?
We'll ask you. Are you want to tag on to that?
Yeah. So when I was listening to you present your campus, an idea hit me. I think a great strategic partnership for you guys would be the insurance industry. Just because they do so many repairs and they do have such a big customer network like State Farm or something, that I think it would be great cross promotion for you guys, and it would be a lead driver for your lead driver.
And James, I'll let you respond. We're going to have one more company, and then because we're starting to run a little short.
That's a great question. So if we help them find a shop,
Why would they then use our service? That's a mixed response, actually. It's kind of like saying, you know, I bought a phone cover, you know, through Amazon from Target. Why would I go back to Amazon, right? It's because as a consumer, I want the options every time. So, you know, there's going to be those that find those relationships and they stay, but that's not me. That's not a lot of people. So, and that's an assumption. You know, you could be completely right, but we won't know until we try.
And that's a great example of how this is going to go in the coming weeks on what you're going to present, the things that you're learning, and have people really kind of critique it, get that feedback. So, very good stuff. All right, Logan, coming up. And believe me, after tonight, all of you, not the mentors, all of you will be presenting business model campuses. So you're going to have plenty of opportunities.
Okay, so this is kind of a rough, obviously, campus here. So I'm just going to kind of hit on some of them and then get feedback. So basically our value proposition is we have an automatic shut-off valves that helps prevent excessive flooding in homes. And that obviously prevents mold growth. A lot of times there's lots of water that goes through, and then, you know, the homeowner's environment's actually compromised. It prevents relocation, so a lot of times during the restoration process, people actually have to leave their homes, so it prevents that. And our design is actually a lot different. If you look online, there's a lot of different companies that are doing this, but our design is a way that cuts costs quite a bit. So in our assumptions, we're going to be about 30% the overall cost of the average competitor, so that includes installation as well. For the customers, basically we think that our biggest customer is going to be those who are reactive, so people who have had a flood or are currently, you know, getting their house repaired. The plumber is going to be able to upsell the product a lot more easily. And then also proactive, people who travel a lot, or people who, you know, have a summer home down here in the valley or things like that. And like we talked about earlier, some key partnerships, definitely insurance companies. We hope that they'll be able to help us effectively reach the end consumer, which in this case is homeowners, but they'll be able to do that at a lower cost than us just kind of throwing flyers on doors and things like that. And also plumbing companies and distributors as well. So, feedback?
Any feedback? Yes. Let me bring you the mic.
Sorry. Your idea going through the insurance companies is a good one and a challenging one. Because, first of all, there are lots of folks, we've heard, I think, 2 or 3 tonight, talking about the impact of insurance companies on their ability to get their product or service to market. And so if there's 3 just in this room, you can imagine how many are bombarding the insurance companies with their ideas. The insurance companies also tend to be very large, monolithic organizations where decisions are made slowly, and I always challenge entrepreneurs whenever they're going to give up their sales process to a third party, in this case, the insurance companies. So my first reaction is that I would encourage you, or I'm mentoring you, to develop some additional methods for selling this directly that don't depend on the insurance companies. Even though they may be more expensive, you can go out of business waiting for the insurance companies to buy into your solution and make their channel available to you.
Great feedback, Alan. Anybody else?
Can I respond to that real quick?
Oh, sure. Hang on, let me give you the mic.
I definitely agree with you. I know that's going to be a slow process. I'd like to try to see if I can talk to some like independent agents who may represent them and just kind of get their feel on whether or not they might be able to see the value in it. And then obviously the plumbing companies, I feel is going to be where we're probably going to start out. So we'll be, you know, trying to get them. We'll be basically a wholesaler to them, and they can, you know, make money not only on the product but also on the installation as well.
So then it'll be important for you to determine how you can, in accordance with the canvas, how you can reach those plumbers in a cost-effective manner.
Right.
Real quickly, in reaching the plumbers, I'd start out with the trade associations and go and even buy a booth at a convention and go that route. We'll get to your comment. We're going to get back here. This is exactly how this type of feedback should go, getting the input from you all. This is great.
I might have missed this, but would it work in a multi-unit building, apartment building, or condo?
That's part of the research and development of opening up new markets. That's something that we want to do, but right now we're designing prototypes. We have 2 prototypes right now, so we're on the verge of getting a manufacturing prototype, and we do have a patent. So in terms of taking that particular one where it's more single family homes and then trying to go into the more commercialized, maybe in the industry, we're going to work on trying to create those new markets as well.
Because that is a big issue in apartment buildings.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do one more comment over here. Yes.
Just thinking about some of the comments from the gentleman in the background, the difficulty in dealing with insurance companies. And I can second that from many different perspectives. But if you accept that and you accept the fact that individual consumers that are aware of the need, let's say they've gone through a problem, are going to go to a plumber. The plumber is really in the best position to be influenced, and probably will be the greatest decision maker on whether or not they buy your product or competitor's product. So along those lines, have you incorporated plumbers and plumbing professionals in the product design process, or do you plan to do that in the future so that you have a real competitive advantage in their areas?
So with that, we looked at who was out there, who's doing this, and we found that all of them are using electricity or batteries or things like that. So in all the installation practices of the competitors, they have to have not only a plumber come out, but also an electrician. And so that really raises the cost of the installation. So basically we designed the product on the terms of what is it that's currently on the house. It's a manual ball valve. So basically it replaces that. So there's no real difference between installing our product and what they're currently doing. So that's we really try to focus on that aspect.
Who installs in the home is supposed to be?
Developers, so whoever, I'm pretty sure the developer. Yeah, that's up there as a strategic partner. I'm not sure that, starting out that's market, but obviously if the product works and we're gaining traction, that would definitely be a different area that we can go to.
Excellent. Okay. Give him a round of applause. Well done. Okay, so that's a good snippet, a good taste of what we're going to have in the weeks to come, and the course is going to be more focused on what we just experienced there. As we go into the next couple weeks, next week is going to be more focused on the value proposition canvas, which we'll all be doing that as an activity. You'll be able to learn from each other on that one. And you'll all be presenting your business model canvas. We're going to split them into 2 different cohorts. So it's a little bit more intimate setting. You get more direct feedback from the mentors. And you're going to be able to really start those discussions and get some of that insight that's going to be very valuable to you. So for next week, here's your reading assignment right there. It's going to be in your packet as well. You have that in your slides. Those cover the business model generation. There's a lot of stuff that we talked about today that gives you a little bit more in-depth and guidance on that. Also from the Startup Owners Manual, and talks about customer discovery and those pieces that are going to be very important, especially to next week. So your marching orders are this, companies. You're going to be out there talking to at least 10 customers over the next week. And that's going to be a weekly requirement. So, and you know what, for those of you who are just new in the throes of this, just get out and start talking to people. Just start getting in the habit of that. We're not going to be like, oh my gosh, did you talk to your precise exact customer segment? Just start learning how to do that, what that looks like, what that feels like. Get that experience and get that kind of hat on so you can start diving more into that. I'm emailing you all of your Google Docs tomorrow. You're going to have separate little bit.lys that we can all access because you're going to be filling out that information on what you learned over the next week and how many customers you talk to. So each company will be doing that for your own Google Doc. Now, next week when we get here, and actually it'll be room 301. I'll send an email out as a reminder to everybody. We're going to start in the same room, but on your Google Doc, everybody's going to be able to access that when you do your business model canvas, and the mentors are going to be able to give feedback to you and some insight as we're also doing it live, and the other your other colleagues are going to be able to give you some feedback as well. So it's going to be a lot more interactive next week. This week was giving you kind of the big picture and kind of getting the table set for this. So be prepared to create slides around your Google Doc questions and your updated business model canvas. So does everybody understand how that's going to flow next week? Are we good with that? Before we wrap up, and every week we're going to wrap up with our takeaways. So I want to do like a quick round robin on takeaways. What was the important element you got from tonight? What was something that you just that was insightful or different? And then after we do our little round robin of takeaways, I want all of my companies, I want you to all identify another company that you want to report to next week. Because how it's going to go, we're all going to gather in the same room to start. And whoever you tag as your kind of partner company, I want you to be able to share what struggle that you had this week of your discovery process and be able to share that with the other company and how you overcame that struggle or maybe get some feedback from them. So I want you all to start talking to each other. So I want you to identify a partner company that you're going to share with some of your discoveries when we first get to class next week. Okay, sound good? All right, so takeaways, Shannon.
I guess kind of on the spot. One of the things that I guess was the biggest takeaway was how much the process kind of repeats itself. So I've gone through some of this process before, but then now that I think about it more, there just seems to be more and more things that pop up that I could do with the business model canvas and things that I can fill out again.
All right, Jameson.
I think the business model canvas is refreshing because, like Benson was saying, you could get through the first 8 blocks and get to your cost structure, and then realize that now your revenue model doesn't work. You know, that you got to charge more. You got to go back to your customer. I think every block that's validated needs to be revalidated with everything else. It needs to fit in the whole puzzle, and that's really refreshing to see from a high level. And I appreciate that.
Excellent. All right, we're going to go over and put Jen on the spot over here. Team Link. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi. What I really found out was the cost versus benefit structure, because it's not usually the cheapest product that will always work, but it also has to be what's safe for your customers, because we're dealing with a medical product. So yes, we want to make it cheap in a sense, but does that take away from the benefit of making it safe? So I think that's really important to really understand. And then,
all right. You were silent with yours.
Definitely the value of just if they want the product, what's the point?
And you know, that seems like such a simple premise, but it really has such a great impact. It really is very meaningful. Tim, what about your input?
I think I learned a little more structure to focus my decisions on.
Excellent. Very good. How about you?
What I found really enlightening was that thermometer you had with the different readiness levels. And that was something I hadn't really thought about before. I mean, it was kind of in my head, you should be at a certain place where you were talking to people, but really had it laid out, and that was very insightful.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it's nice if we have kind of a map to show us where we should be striving for, where should we be going. Benson?
I think for me, the big thing to remember is, we had a lot of mentors here and a lot of people giving really great advice and asking really great probing questions. But at the end of the day, who really matters is the person who puts the money in your pocket. And so that's all great advice, and it can point you in the right direction, but you still have to validate it with your customers at the end of the day.
All right, anybody else want to chime in with the takeaway? Anybody? You do? All right.
So I realized that we have more customers than I thought we did. We opened up the filtering users. We only look at the hospital sides, the doctor's offices, all various other routes we can go through to get to customers. And
and that's a big realization for us personally.
Great, that's always good to realize you have more customers, right? Or maybe the potential. I might make more money, this is awesome. All right, Joe, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to reiterate both that, the customer segmentation is a big piece. I came here tonight thinking, you know, hey, hospital administrators, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's the general public, it's the government, it's anyone that is a stakeholder in healthcare in America today that can benefit. So it's really looking at the customer segmentation in a different way. And then secondly, to reiterate what was said in the back, is really having a structure, sort of trial, ask the customer, no, pivot. You know, it's nice to have sort of a path forward. So very, very good takeaways.
Thank you all so much for being here, mentors. Thank you. We so appreciate your time, your input, your feedback. It's invaluable to all of our companies. So don't forget, my takeaway is that we forget that the AC goes off at 6 p.m. So thank you, Eli, for that reminder. Note to self next week. It's like, why is it getting so hot in here? But next week, group 301 the same time, and we look forward to seeing you. Companies, don't forget to tag with somebody else for your partner company. Thank you all. Have a great evening.